As I recall, that was in March of '57, that blizzard. I don't know how long it lasted, actually, 4 or 5 days, something like that.
Well, in 1957, when the snow blizzard hit, I was 7 years old. That particular day, I don't know as we really knew what was coming. If we did, my parents didn't seem to be alarmed about it.
It came on the radio that there was a blizzard moving in, that everybody should take precaution. Where we lived out in the country was a little iffy on communication. I mean, we didn't have a TV at the time, and so everything was done, everything we heard was via radio.
It started fairly early Saturday morning.
You know, being in the country, you gotta pretty much be self-sufficient. You just worry about the home place and check on Grandma and Grandpa next door, so.
We went into town that day for dentist appointments and didn't seem to be in any big rush to get home or anything. Of course, when we went home on 83 south of Garden City, that's not the 83 that we're used to now. It's the old 83 that goes through the sandhills. And the further south we went, the worse the storm got. And we finally got to the turnoff onto what now is West Fork Road. And at that point, Dad said, we can't go any further. The snow was dragging underneath us, and so Dad says, well, we can't make it through this. So he proceeded to turn around and head back to Garden City.
We had a warning that it was there, but I can't remember any bad weather prior to that. We lived in a fairly new house up in the north part of Dodge, and it didn't have the trees and so forth that a lot of other area did.
When that blizzard hit, I was in the shop working on machinery, and it started raining, and I finally quit and went to the house. We lived in a little basement house, a little dugout, and it started snowing then that night, and that was about the last time we got out of the house.
The storm kept getting worse, and it was very rapid. From the time we left town till the time we turned around and tried to get back to it the second time, the storm just went from a light snow to blizzard conditions. And finally we got up to, at that time, Dr. Wiley's place about 3 miles south of town. And that was as far. Dad got off the road and got stuck, and we were stranded. And finally, a fellow came by with a four-wheel drive pickup, and he took us on into town to my grandparents' house. So, fortunately, the good Lord was looking after us, and we got into town, got to our grandparents, and we ended up staying there. I know we stayed there at least 2 nights. It might have been 3 nights.
When I was waiting out the storm, I'd look out the front door and I could see the shop. But Sunday morning, I couldn't see the shop. And I thought, boy, it's got a lot worse. And then when it was all over, the reason I couldn't see the shop because the drift was so tall.
It moved in overnight, so when we got up the next morning and we opened the door and it was just solid. The snow had just packed up against us. It had completely covered the first floor. We lived in a 2-story house. So the first floor was completely packed in. You couldn't see out. It was dark, you know. It was pretty scary. I can remember my mother just feeling so frightened about it because the snow was packed in so tight against the house, there wasn't any light. So she made Daddy go out and dig around the windows so we could have light in the house.
I was 7 years old at the time, and we had a milk cow and a barn, one half of it a hay loft, the other part open to the south where the cow could go in and out for shelter. So Dad finally got out of the house, took a rope, tied it onto a cross tie at the gate that goes into the pasture, had somewhat of an idea of the angle going to the barn, because it was still blowing, you couldn't see. And he made his way over to it, tied the rope on to the barn, so we had a way to walk and hold on to the rope. He came back and got me, and we went back over there and was able to at least milk the cow, so she wasn't in as much pain.
I was not quite 3 at the time of the blizzard. I don't remember much of it snowing, but I remember not having any water because we didn't have electricity, so we lived on a farm north and west of Deerfield on the road to Lake McKinney. And I remember being able to go out after the blizzard was over with my older sisters and brother and play in the snow. And you keep in mind I was 3. We were walking along, I fell into an irrigation ditch. There must have been an air pocket there. Completely couldn't see me. They had to pull me out. I'm surprised they didn't leave me there. But
We were running quite a few cattle, always have run cattle, and they didn't stray away. They got in behind some banks of snow and stayed in the pen, and we were fortunate from that standpoint. We didn't lose any cattle at all.
In our family, we celebrated my grandfather's birthday, the 24th of March, every year. And they were coming out to celebrate the birthday. Mother and my brother and 4 sisters were together, and then my dad was coming later. And they got stalled over east, I think it's about 4 miles east of the Pierceville Road on the Plymell Road. They got stalled, and they weren't dressed for walking in the snow, but they were able to get up to a farm home.
I was talking to my husband about it, and he's a year older than I, so he would have been 4. And they lived east of Garden City, kind of where the KOA campgrounds was, in that area. My husband remembers tanks coming out to bring feed to cattle out east of town where he lived.
It was fun. It was great. It was, I wasn't in school at the time. And so my brothers and sisters were home, and we had all this snow to play in, and my dad made us a little walkway to get up on top of the snow because it was frozen really hard. So you could walk around on it because the wind was so cold. And so it was a great time. Never did again get to play on the roof of the house. So it was one time, one shot we had it. So yeah, it was fun.
What always has stuck with me was we were stuck in the house 2 days, couldn't physically get out.
That was the one worst snowstorm that I've ever been through.